Hi, everybody. My name is Mrs. Hoyt, and I'm the school psychologist here at Runlet. And I'm here to talk to you on your next advisory lesson, which is executive functioning. Before I show you this presentation, I want to let you know that I did not create it. There's a woman on the Seacoast, a psychologist named Peg Dawson, who's an expert throughout North America, really, on executive functioning. And she's actually been working with myself and a group of school psychologists throughout the state on executive functioning skills and how to work with parents, teachers, and students on that. So she's really developed this as kind of an introduction to your brain and executive functioning skills. So kind of a little bit of a brain lesson is when we are first born, we do not have any few neural connections in our brain. We sleep, we eat, and we poop. That's it. That's not going to work for us for the rest of our life. So the brain explodes in neural connections, especially in those first 6 years of life, which is great. However, all those neural connections really don't help when we get past 6 years old. They really get in the way, they slow us down. So our brain does something natural called pruning, or if you have a garden, it's very similar to weeding, where it looks at the skills that we're using consistently and it keeps those skills, it keeps those neural connections so we can continue with those skills. Think of walking. We need to walk. We do that. We don't even think about it. However, think of something that you don't do on a regular basis. So those neural connections get weaker and they eventually disappear altogether. So right now you are at a prime time because this pruning process is happening in our brains without us even knowing it. So we have to think about when you want to create new skills and new habits, you have to think about not only how you are spending your time, but you have to think about those things that you're not doing. Because if you don't do something, those are the skills you're going to lose. So what are important things for you to learn? What are important things? What are your targets that you have to keep going in those skills that you have to keep on top of? If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, it probably are those areas that you find more important, whereas teachers and parents find the right side of the screen more important. Both sides of the screen, I think we could all agree, are important, even though they're not of interest to you on the right hand of the side. Some of you may be interested in those things. Some of them may not be on the left-hand side of the page, but you want to think about what it is that's important to you. And what is important for life for you to get through the next 5, 6, 7 years of school and maybe beyond if you go to college and whatnot. So right now, because of this process that our brain is going through, it's an awesome time to learn new skills because when the other neural connections aren't in the way, the ones that remain work way better. They're faster, they're quicker, they're more efficient, they get to different areas of the brain more accurately, and we have something called neuroplasticity, which allows our brain to change, and it is so easy right now, as you can see from this graphic. So this dark red line shows how easily our brain learns something. So at birth, it is so easy to learn things, whereas when we're 70, it's more difficult to learn things. It can still happen. We also look at the pink line as to how much effort it takes. Everything takes effort the first time you do it. You're not going to be successful the first time you do it. But it takes less effort now than when you get to, say, age 30 and above. It takes more effort. So thinking about where you are in life right now, this right now is an awesome time. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort to change your brain and learn new skills. Your brain is ready for it. So how does this learning process take place? Honestly, one thing: practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's what you have to do. So for example, a couple weeks ago, I was at the faculty student basketball game and I saw these students take these amazing 3-point shots like nothing, like they have been doing it for years, which they probably have. They looked flawless and they looked effortless. It was great to see. Staff, no offense, yours weren't as good, but your 3-point shots weren't as good, but that's okay. Probably for those students who were taking those shots, it probably wasn't as effortless and flawless the first time they did it. It was hard the first time they did it, but they had to practice. Then the coaches probably gave them the skills and said, this is what you need to do. But you, the students, still had to practice. Same thing with learning a new instrument. We can tell you where to put your fingers. We can tell you how to use the air to go through the mouthpieces and all those different types of things. But ultimately, you have to practice. Same thing with reading, with writing, with math, with learning a video game. The first time you play a new video game, it's probably hard and you probably give up pretty easily. However, as you go on in practice, you get better and more. You get better at it and you become more, feel better about it, and your confidence increase. Practice, practice, practice is really the only way to improve these skills. Which brings us to executive functioning skills. I'm going to be honest with you, these skills can't really be taught per se. These skills have to be developed over time. And again, now's the perfect time to do that. Our executive skills are located right behind the forehead in those frontal lobes, as you probably are all touching it. Some of them we've discussed already in advisory that you probably don't even know about. So when we look at the brain, there's two areas that are the foundation of executive functioning, which is decision making and impulse control. So our ventromedial prefrontal cortex is the area that's responsible for rational decision making, whereas the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is the area responsible for thinking ahead and impulse control. These areas develop more slowly, and in all honesty, the whole area of the brain, the prefrontal cortex and the frontal cortex, don't develop until you're about 28 years old. That is not an excuse for you not to learn the skills now, because if you develop them now, as you develop higher level skills, it will be easier to do. So the decision making skills really mature faster than the impulse control. Think about your phone. You know you shouldn't be checking your phone, shouldn't be on your phone, but that impulse control is so strong that you end up checking your phone. So when we think about our executive functioning skills that need to be developed, we start off with the zones of regulation. This is our response inhibition. This is our emotional control. We talked about mindfulness. I know you guys, I have an 8th grade group, don't want to talk in terms of red, green, and yellow, which I can absolutely appreciate. That's not the words that you use later in life. However, it's still important to understand your triggers, what upsets you, what helps you calm down. We also have different skills that we have to use to keep in mind of everything we have to remember and what worked last time. What are we going to do? How are we going to hold things in our memory? And how are we going to pay attention in class when we have all these other distractions that are going on, not even in the class, but in the world as a whole and for us personally? Some people here have a hard time starting tasks, especially you're given a project. I have no idea what to do, where to start, what I need for this. And then we also have these bumps in the road or these things that happen that are unexpected. So we have a problem. Can we think of different ways to do it? If I have this project and my first way isn't working, can I switch it up and try something else? One of the things that we're going to talk about and work on over the next couple of weeks is the planning and the prioritizing and also staying organized. How do we create a GPS in our brain to get something done? How do we create a system so we can keep track of what we need? Because let me tell you, I can't tell you how many kids come to Mrs. Chapman's desk, because I'm right next door to Mrs. Chapman, and calling their parents, I forgot my gym bag, I forgot my Chromebook. That is not executive functioning skills at its best. That's your parents doing it for you. So how do we put the responsibility back on you to help you develop the skills? You're going to feel like your parents are nagging at you a little bit. You're going to feel like your parents are like, oh, guess what? It's this time. You said this is the time you're going to do your homework. You're going to spend 20 minutes to do your homework. Again, the nagging, it feels that way. It's not meant to be that way, but this is the way that you're going to learn. Because if you did it the first time, would your parents have to remind you? If you did it the first time, would your teachers have to remind you? No, but at the same time, we know that you need reminders. And there's different ways to give reminders, not just verbal. Sometimes there's nonverbal, sometimes they're lists. And, we eventually want people to reach a goal. There's definitely important goals. People have goals in life. People have goals, playing an instrument. I did not have a goal in life to be a professional musician, but I did have a goal to play this song called Flight of the Bumblebee, which is really, really hard. So you can still have hobbies that you make your goals for. And eventually we have something called metacognition, which is way down the line and probably more towards when your brain is fully developed. But thinking about what you did, how you did it, what you used, putting it all together. So what am I going to do and change for the next time? So you're going to do a rating scale that's going to show what your executive functioning strengths and weaknesses are. They change over time. They don't stay constant. And you're going to use different skills than the people next to you. You're going to use different skills than your parents and your teachers, which is okay. Because when you take and know what your profile is, then you can start to develop those skills that you need to boost up those executive functioning weaknesses. Does that mean you can't change? Absolutely not. Remember, you are at a prime time right now where it takes less effort to make changes in your brain, and the payoff is going to be greater now than it ever will be in your life. So, thank you for listening. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.